Puede que cambie el mundo, quizás también nuestras prioridades. Pero si algo ha quedado claro, es que lo primero es nuestra salud. Necesitamos más que nunca sentirnos bien, cuidadas, respetadas, informadas, empoderadas y unidas. Las matronas forman parte de la profesión más antigua del mundo, cuidando mujeres y favoreciendo su fisiología durante toda su vida, sin perder su esencia, sin dejar de avanzar. Seguiremos evolucionando, siempre dando lo mejor. Crea tu perfil. Encuentra cualquier servicio que necesites. Filtra según tus necesidades. Compara las valoraciones y comentarios de otras usuarias. Comparte a través del foro internacional. Intercambia, busca o vende cualquier producto. Estamos preparadas para el siguiente paso.
Hi everyone, my name's Godfrey-Isaacs. I'm a midwife, artist and birth activist from London, the UK, and delighted to be here virtually at your conference. And I'm going to be talking to you today about a project that I've been running for the last 4 years called Maternal Journal. And we've just recently published our first book, which is a guide to journaling, Maternal Journal, a creative guide to journaling through pregnancy, birth and into beyond. So I'm really hoping that that will be a publication that you'll be interested in and find useful. So this presentation is going to just give you a bit of background into the project and at the end also talk a little bit more about how we've put the book together. So Maternal Journal, as its name suggests, is a project that is specifically targeted at people that are pregnant, have given birth, are taking their journey through into motherhood, parenting, and it's really trying to address the issues that we particularly have in the UK, and I'm sure you do in other parts of the world as well, with maternal mental health. So people that have given birth and the extreme pressures that they find, the lack of support often in society, some of the damaging stereotypes we have around what that looks like or what it should be on social media, and generally sort of dominant cultural narratives that put a lot of pressure on people as they enter this phase of their life. And as I said at the beginning, my background was in the arts, and what I've tried to do with this project is bring some of the creative strategies that I've used in the past as a producer together with my interests and experience as a midwife to try and set up a project that can support people with their mental health going through this journey. So it's really a project that's quite multi-layered. So it's about supporting people coming together in a group, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. We have a sort of group format, but it's also supporting people to journal on their own, to find their creativity in themselves, to develop a ongoing practice of journaling to support their mental health throughout their lives, really, we hope. And also a way of connecting with other people, sharing experiences, and getting support in those community ways. So as I said, I'm one of the producers. I'm also now co-producing the project with Sam, who's on the left-hand side there with her baby, who's a communication specialist. And when we set up the first group, we had an amazing group of people come, most of whom were pregnant or mothers already, some of them, or onto their second or third pregnancy. And some of those people have stayed with the project, and now we call them our founding mothers. So this is a group of some of our founding mothers who really helped to inform the project with their own lived experience, not only of pregnancy and birth, but also of mental health issues during that period. So what is journaling? So it might be a term you're familiar with. If not, you might be more familiar with the idea of keeping a diary or a sketchbook. So what it is really is a kind of a regular practice where you'd use some kind of notebook or exercise book where you would be able to note down your thoughts, your feelings, your reflections, document what's happening to you. And it's a creative space where you also might draw, you might write, you might stick things in, pick up references that you get from having visited exhibitions or other cultural experiences or holidays or trips away. So it's a kind of a regular document that's just for you. It would be in some kind of book, but that could have lined paper, or it could be an open book like a sketchbook. So why would journaling be important through this journey of pregnancy, birth and beyond? So on this slide, I talk about some of the sort of key aspects of the project. So if you've gone through this yourself, or as a midwife, you're supporting other people going through it, you know that it's a time of great change, challenge, physical challenges, emotional challenges, but it's also an opportunity for growth. And also, because of that, it's a space where you might want to reflect on your past, your own parenting that you experienced, your own feelings about starting to become a mother or a parent. It's also a space in which you can not only reflect on your own personal experiences or thoughts and feelings, but also your social and political views on parenting, mothering, pregnancy and birth. It's a creative space, and there's a lot of documentation now and research into the benefits of creativity and how it can support mental health and well-being. And it's also a space where you can have connection with others through our workshops, but also through sharing stuff online or talking to friends about their journaling. It's a way where you can understand how perhaps some of your experiences are very much shared experiences. And, you know, we all go through those kind of changes and challenges, but also you might learn from others about the particularity of their experience, and give you other perspectives, cultural and social political perspectives on parenting. So the other aspect of journaling that I think it's really interesting to consider is the kind of historical legacy. So I was talking at the beginning about this idea of a diary, and that historically would probably be a term that we might be more familiar with. And often in times historically where particularly women had less access to, you know, becoming a professional artist or writer or journalist, using a diary was an acceptable form of creativity, and an acceptable space in which to also express your views, social and political views. And so you see quite a lot of diaries historically that were written by people who were very mindful of the audience, and they were writing in order for their diaries to be published so that they had a voice. And I think that legacy is really important and very powerful. And it's something that we can look back at, some amazing diaries and sketchbooks kept by women over the centuries. And it's also something that is a continuum. So people journaling now, keeping a diary now, feel that they're connected to that history as well. And this slide is one of a really wonderful sketchbook kept by the artist Frida Kahlo, who you might have heard of. It's a Mexican revolutionary, very important artist. And her sketchbook, she actually kept them as private documents. She didn't want them to be public. So that's another aspect of journaling that I think is really interesting, that it can be a very private space. It can be a space that's just for you. You keep that diary in a special place. You keep it closed. You don't share it with people if you don't want to. So it's a space where you can be really open and honest with yourself, and not just necessarily something that you want to share. So some people want to journal in that way. Other people, as I was saying before, use it as something that then they can use to connect with others and make public their views and thoughts and feelings. So Frida Kahlo's sketchbooks were private documents, though they have since been published, and that's another quite interesting aspect of what kind of permission we give and how we kind of safeguard what we create in our journals. This is another example of a really important diary by Ida B. Wells, who was 19th century suffragist and civil rights campaigner, and she wrote a lot about the social injustice that she was experiencing and other Black people were experiencing in America at the time. So that is a really important social document, that diary, and I think she was definitely, and did work as a journalist, and was definitely mindful of the fact that her diaries would become these public statements. And then there's lots of wonderful contemporary journals, particularly those around childbirth, motherhood and parenting are ones that we tend to look at in the project. So on the left on this slide is from a fantastic publication by a British poet called Holly McNish, and she wrote a book called Nobody Told Me, which documents the first 2 years of her life as a mother, her pregnancy, and it's interspersed. It's a sort of diary but interspersed with poems, and it's a very raw and often funny but deeply political book about the experiences of becoming a mother, and she was quite a young mother as well. And I often recommend that to people that I'm looking after through pregnancy, as opposed to a kind of a pregnancy manual. I find this is like a far more kind of informative and entertaining and enriching read than a manual that's kind of telling you what to do. And on the right-hand side is an image from a graphic novel by the cartoonist and author Henny Beaumont called Hole in the Heart. And this documents the experiences she went through with her fourth child, who was born with Down syndrome, which was undiagnosed before birth. And this is a very powerful account of that experience, her initial shock, her lack of support from the healthcare professionals, and then her increasing and growing political views and actions around being the mother of a disabled child. So talking about Henny's work and also some of these other journals here that you can see, it's, I think, what's great about a lot of the contemporary accounts of mothering and parenthood is they are, starting to introduce far more diverse voices from the margin, mothering and parenting experiences that haven't been part of the mainstream. So Nefertiti Austin on the left, Motherhood So White, which is an account of being a Black mother in America. And on the right-hand side, Pregnant Butch, which is a graphic novel by cartoonist A.K. Summers, which is about her experiences of being a butch lesbian mother. So these, I think, really expand our understanding of what people in these kind of situations and their individual experiences and the wider cultural and social implications of the types of narratives that we're used to around parenting. So our project Maternal Journal tries to support people to create their own journaling practice. And the main mechanism for us to do this is to create these journaling guides. So we work with a whole range of artists and we ask them to create journaling guides for us. So these are very simple, I call them deceptively simple, step-by-step ways of creating some kind of journaling content in your journal yourself. We introduce people to different techniques, different genres, different artists. So on the left-hand side is a guide by a Black British artist, visual artist called Barbie Asante, and this is called Revolutionary Mothering. So she takes you through a series of writing prompts to think about your own revolutionary mothering, how, you know, what you do and your situation, whatever that may be, can be transformative for yourself and for your child. And on the right-hand side is another guide by a Black British poet called Tolu Akbalesi. This is called Writing into the Gap with Poetry. So she introduces, again, a series of writing prompts. She uses this type of writing called free writing. So she'll give you a prompt, an idea, and then give you a very short amount of time in which to respond. And she asks you to not overthink it. So a lot of these guides are about trying to free people up to support their own creativity, but also provide simple steps that anyone can try. So you might think, I'm not a writer, I'm not a poet, I'm not an artist. That may be the case in your life, but everyone is creative, and these guides help everyone to explore their own creativity. And we also have a series of what we call mini guides. So we've got about 30 of these, which were created at the beginning of the pandemic when people were in lockdown and we were trying to support their creativity in simple and quick ways. So these maybe have only 1 or 2 steps, and they can be shorter. So on the right hand side, we've got this lovely guide called Amazing Hands by Alice, and she asks you to draw around your hand and then write into your hand everything that hand has done. So all the care work that you've done, all of the tasks that you've done in the day. And it's a really interesting way to kind of reflect on your role, maybe as a mother, as a parent, your thoughts about the kind of care work you do, whatever your situation. And a lot of these guides you can repeat, so it's quite interesting to do them at different stages, different times of the day, when you're feeling differently, so that you can explore, you know, different aspects of what's going on in your life and your parenting. So all of those guides are free to download on our website. So you can it's maternaljournal.org. You just go there, go to the journaling section, and have a look at all the guides, the ones that you are interested in. You can download them, print them off, or just use them for reference on your phone or your computer. A few other things we've been doing recently are called art-inspired journaling. So we're introducing people to some key artworks. So this is by an amazing American poet called Sharon Olds. This is called New Mother. And this very powerful poem talks about her first experiences of sex interaction with her male partner after birth, and how that she's reflecting on how she feels about her body and how her body feels differently after giving birth. So what we do is post the poem and then have a very short prompt, as you can see on the left-hand side. How do you feel about sex in your body after birth? So just providing the inspiration of maybe introducing that poet to someone for the first time, them being inspired by the poem. They might then want to go and look at more of Sharon Olds' work. And then also we provide a quick prompt so that if they want to then use that to create a piece of writing or a drawing or a poem, from that inspiration, that they can take that forward in their journal. So maternal journal groups are basically the way in which we bring people together into a community. We use one guide, any of the ones that I just showed you could be used. We get everyone to maybe talk about what they might have produced in their journal recently. People can share. And then we introduce one of the guides. We all do it together. We sit around a table. The person who's running the workshop will also do the guide alongside the participants. And then again, we go around the table and everyone shares what they've made. And that tends to elicit a lot of discussion, a lot of sharing, a lot of empathy. And it can be it's a very safe space where people can be really honest about what's going on. And the guide hopefully has allowed them to unpack some experiences that they then might want to share with people. So you can see in these images on the maternal journal group slide, people often come with their babies. So sometimes the groups are very mixed. They might have some pregnant people there. They might have new mothers with babies. They might have people who have older children. Often the groups are mixed in that way. And that can be a really interesting way to also get insights into what it's like after you've given birth, what it's like with older children, how that mothering journey, that parenting journey is a continuum. This is some feedback from some maternal journal groups, and I think it just shows how people find this a very empowering space. It's a safe space, as I said, where people are often honest and open about what's going on for them in a way that they aren't in other types of mother or baby groups, where the emphasis is often on the baby, on practical parenting, and sometimes can be, not very helpful in terms of sometimes being a bit competitive, and people are sort of performing themselves as this ideal mother, which we often see, in the media, and yet this space, very much in contrast to that, is a space where people can be really open and honest about their experiences, and that can be very helpful for people to realise struggles they're having are shared, and also listen and hear about other people's experiences, which can also give them a wider perspective on their own situation. So this is the maternal journal book. Because the project's been running for 4 years now, we were really happy to get the opportunity to compile everything into this book. We see it as a very practical guide. So we've been able to commission a lot of new guides. So there's 80 guides in there. So there's a lot of material, which hopefully means it's a publication that people can keep going back to, they can use over the years. Alongside all the guides, there's also a sort of longer introduction to the project, a little bit of a potted history of journaling, like I was talking earlier about this historical legacy, a bit more about how journaling and creativity can support mental health and well-being. We also have some really good reading lists in there, so lots of journals that we suggest can be inspiring for you. Also organisations we recommend that can support parenting. And some art inspirations as well. So some wonderful poems, artworks by our contributing artists and others who've been really generous in the content they've allowed us to use. So you can see that the illustrations we use are very inclusive. They hopefully really help to make the material easy to navigate. Our illustrator, Merlin Evans, again, we've been able to commission a lot of new guides, new illustrations from her for the book. And you can see on the right-hand side, this drawing is by one of our artists, Jess Tom, Tourette's hero. So we've also, as I said, got lots of lovely journal images in there from participants from maternal journal groups, but also artworks and drawings from some of our contributing artists. So it's a very rich book visually, and also hopefully a book that will support you over the years with your own journaling. So again, here, this is our website, maternaljournal.org. You can also follow us on social media, Maternal Journal, there on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. So yeah, we really hope that people, whether they are birth workers, midwives, or we have many doulas, psychotherapists, artists who also follow us and run groups. We hope very much that we can expand, people's interest. We're sorry that everything at the moment is in English, but it's a very visual book and it's a very visual project. So hopefully, if people have English as a second language to the level that they can read and follow our guides, that will be a way for people to engage with us as well. So thank you very much for having me. And if you would like to try Maternal Journal, follow us online, or also you can order the book on Amazon or any of the other platforms, book platforms internationally and through the UK. Thank you and have a great conference.